It's Quio. Just Quio again. And this is the Lost Sheep. Ba-dum-ba.
Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99.
So welcome back. We are going to continue Esther. If this is not your cup of tea, I warn you, it's good. You're going to be bored. But if it is, if you're like me, you're a Bible nerd, then stick around, enjoy. My thoughts will be at the end of the video. We'll just finish off the story, and then you'll hear all my opinions. And yeah, we'll discuss what the story is and what we can take away from it. So let's get to it. Mordecai. Oh, sorry. The night the Lord took sleep from the king. So he gave orders to his secretary to bring the book of daily records and to read to him. He found the words written about Mordecai, how he had told the king about 2 royal eunuchs who were on guard and sought to lay hands on King Artaxerxes. The king said, "What honor or dignity did we bestow on Mordecai?" The king's servant said, "You have not done anything for him." While the king was inquiring about the goodwill shown by Mordecai, Haman was in the courtyard. It's like the middle of the night, okay. The king asked, "Who was in the courtyard?" Now Haman had come to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared. The servants of the king answered, "Haman is standing in the courtyard." And the king said, "Summon him." Then the king said to Haman, "What shall I do for the person whom I wish to honor?" And Haman said to himself, "Whom would the king wish to honor more than me?" So he said to the king, "For a person whom the king wishes to honor, let the king's servants bring out the fine linen robe that the king has worn, and the horse on which the king rides, and let both be given to one of the king's honored friends, and let him robe the person whom the king loves, and mount him on the horse, and let it be proclaimed through the open square of the city, saying, 'Thus shall it be done to everyone whom the king honors.'" Then the king said to Haman, "You have made an excellent suggestion. Do just as you have said for Mordecai the Jew, who is on duty in the courtyard, and let nothing be omitted from what you have promised." So Haman got the robe and the horse. This sucks for him. He put on the robe on Mordecai and made him ride through the open square of the city, proclaiming, "Thus shall it be known to everyone whom the king wishes to honor." Then Mordecai returned to the courtyard, and Haman hurried back to his house, mourning and with his head covered. Haman told his wife Zosura and his friends what had befallen him. His friends and his wife said to him, "If Mordecai is of the Jewish people, and you have begun to be humiliated before him, you will surely fall. You will not be able to defend yourself, because the living God is with him." Smart advice. While they were... How long is this? I'm at chapter 7... Oh, okay, it's almost done. While they were still talking, the eunuchs arrived and hurriedly brought Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman went in to drink with the queen. And on the second day, as they were drinking, the king said, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your petition? What is your request? It shall be granted to you, even to half of my kingdom." She answered and said, "If I have found favor with the king, let my life be granted me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, plundered and made slaves, we and our children, male and female slaves. This has come to my knowledge. Our antagonists bring shame on the king's court." When the king said, "Who is this person that would dare to do this thing?" Esther said, "Our enemy is this evil man, Haman." At this, Haman was terrified in the presence of the king and queen, and rightfully so. The king rose from the banquet, went into the garden, and Haman began to beg for his life from the queen, for he saw that he was in serious trouble. Thank you. Sometimes the translations are hilarious. When the king returned from the garden, Haman had thrown himself on the couch, pleading with the queen. The king said, "Will he dare even assault my wife in my own house?" Haman, when he heard, turned away his face. Then Bugathan, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, Haman has even prepared a gallows for Mordecai, who gave information of concern to the king. It is standing at Haman's house, a gallows 50 cubits high." So the king said, "Let Haman be hanged on that." So Haman was hanged on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. With that, the anger of the king abated. On that very day, King Artaxerxes granted to Esther all the property of the persecutor Haman. Mordecai was summoned by the king, for Esther had told the king that he was related to her. The king took the ring that had been taken from Haman and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther said Mordecai over everything that had been Haman's. Then she spoke once again to the king, and falling at his feet, she asked him to avert all the evil that Haman had planned against the Jews. The king extended his golden scepter to Esther, and she rose and stood before the king. Esther said, "If it pleases you, and I have found favor, let an order be sent rescinding the letters that Haman wrote and sent to destroy the Jews in your kingdom. How can I look on the ruin of my people? How can I be safe if my ancestral nation is destroyed? The king said to Esther, now that I have granted all of Haman's property to you and have hanged him on the tree because he acted against the Jews, what else do you request? Write in my name what you think best and seal it with my ring. For whatever is written at the king's command and sealed with my ring cannot be contravened. The secretaries were summoned on the 23rd day of the first month, that is Nisan, in the same year, and all that he commanded with respect to the Jews was given in writing to the administrators and governors of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to each province in its own language. The edict was written with the king's authority and sealed with his ring, and sent out by couriers. He ordered the Jews in every city to observe their own laws, to defend themselves, and to act as they wished against their opponents and enemies, on a certain day, the 13th of the 12th month, throughout all the kingdom of Artaxerxes. But the thing is on the 14th. Okay. The following is a copy of this letter. The great king Artaxerxes, to the governors of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, and to those who are loyal to our government, greetings. I've read that 4 times now. Like, that just specific phrase. Many people, the more they are honored with the most generous kindness of their benefactors, the more proud do they become, and not only seek to injure our subjects, but in their inability to stand prosperity, they even undertake to scheme against their own benefactors. They not only take away thankfulness from others, but, carried away by the boasts of those who know nothing of goodness, they even assume that they will escape the evil-hating justice of God, who always sees everything. And often many of those who are set in place of authority have been made in part of responsible for the shedding of innocent blood, and have been involved in irremediable calamities by the persuasion of friends who have been entrusted with the administration of public affairs, when these persons, by the false treachery of their evil natures, beguile the sincere goodwill of their sovereigns. What has been wickedly accomplished through the pestilent behavior of those who exercise authority unworthily can be seen, not so much from the more ancient records that we hand on, as from investigation of matters close at hand. So, injustice is more present now than it was before, which, interesting. You can consider that for today, too. In the future, we will take care to render our kingdom quiet and peaceable for all, by changing our methods and always judging what comes before our eyes with more equitable consideration. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, a Macedonian, really an alien to the Persian blood, and quite devoid of our kindness. That's slightly racist. Yeah, that's racist against Macedonians. Having become our guest, enjoyed so fully the goodwill that we have for every nation that he was called our father, and was continually bowed down to all by as the person second to the royal throne. But unable to restrain his arrogance, he undertook to deprive us of our kingdom and our life, and with intricate craft and deceit, asked for the destruction of Mordecai, our savior and perpetual benefactor of Esther, the blameless partner of our kingdom, together with their whole nation. He thought that by these methods he would catch us undefended and would transfer the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. Okay. Interesting. Calling him out for treason. Okay. But we find that the Jews who were consigned to annihilation by this thrice accursed man are not evildoers, but are governed by most righteous laws, and are children of the living God, most high and most mighty, who has directed the kingdom both for us and for our ancestors in the most excellent order. You will therefore do well not to put in execution the letters sent by Haman, son of Hammedatha, since he, the one who did these things, has been hanged at the gate of Susa with all his household, for God, who rules over all things, has speedily inflicted on him the punishment that he deserved. What he said there was, y'all want to join him in his letter and do what he said in his letters? I hanged that guy, so good luck. Therefore post a copy of this letter publicly in every place, and permit the Jews to live under their own laws, and give them reinforcements, so that on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, on that very day, they may defend themselves against those who attack them at the time of oppression. For God, who rules over all things, has made this day to be a joy for his chosen people, instead of a day of destruction for them. I still think it was December 14th, but okay. Therefore you shall observe this with all good cheer as notable day among your commemorative festivals, so that both now and hereafter it may represent deliverance for you and the loyal Persians, but that it may be a reminder of destruction for those who plot against us. Every city and country, without exception, that does not act accordingly shall be destroyed in wrath with spear and fire, shall be made not only impassable for human beings, but also made hateful to wild animals and birds for all time. That sounds like hubris. Okay. Let copies of the decree be posted conspicuously in all the kingdom, and let all the Jews be ready on that day to fight against their enemies. So the messengers on horseback set out with all speed to perform what the king had commanded. And the decree was published also in Susa. Mordecai went out dressed in the royal robe and wearing a gold crown and a turban of purple linen. The people of Susa rejoiced on seeing him, and the Jews had light and gladness in every city and province, wherever the decree was published, wherever the proclamation was made. The Jews had joy and gladness, a banquet and a holiday. And many of the Gentiles were circumcised and became Jews out of fear of the Jews. Oh, how the turntables. Now, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, the decree written by the king arrived. On the same day, the enemies of the Jews perished. No one resisted because they feared them. The chief, perished as in they disappeared, not like they died. The chief provincial governors, the princes, and the royal secretaries were paying honor to the Jews because fear of Mordecai weighed upon them. The king's decree required that Mordecai's name be held in honor throughout the kingdom. Now, in the city of Susa, the Jews killed 500 people, including Pharsanestein, Delphon, Phasaga, Pharadatha, Baria, Sarbacha, Marmasima, Aruphios, Arsiaios, Zabutheos, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Bugian, the enemy of the Jews, and they indulged themselves in plunder. That very day, the number of those killed in Susa was reported to the king. The king said to Esther, "In Susa, the capital, the Jews have destroyed 500 people. What do you suppose they have done in the surrounding countryside? Whatever more you ask will be done for you." And Esther said to the king, "Let the Jews be allowed to do the same tomorrow. Also, hang up the bodies of Haman's 10 sons." So he permitted this to be done and handed over to the Jews of the city the bodies of Haman's sons to be hung up. The Jews who were in Susa gathered on the 14th and killed 300 people, but took no plunder. See, that's on my birthday. Now the other Jews in the kingdom gathered to defend themselves and got relief from their enemies, but they destroyed 15,000 of them, but did not engage in plunder. On the 14th day they rested, and made the same day a day of rest, celebrating it with joy and gladness. The Jews who were in Susa, the capital, came together also on the 14th, but did not rest. They celebrated the 15th with joy and gladness. On this account, then, the Jews who are scattered around the country outside Susa keep the 14th of Adar as a joyful holiday, and send presents of food to one another, while those who live in the large cities keep the 15th day of Adar as their joyful holiday, also sending presents to one another. I will have to search up if that still exists, because I know the next book, Maccabees, it's another Greek one, I think. Maccabees has present holidays or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in any religion, honestly, but I'm not an expert in Judaism. Mordecai recorded these things in a book and sent it to the Jews in the kingdom of Artaxerxes, both near and far, telling them that they should keep the 14th and 15th days of Adar. For on these days the Jews got relief from their enemies. This whole month, namely Adar, why must he keep telling me it's Adar? In which their condition had been changed from sorrow into gladness, and from a time of distress to a holiday, was to be celebrated as a time of feasting and gladness, and sending presents of food to their friends and to the poor. So the Jews accepted what Mordecai had written to them, how Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Macedonian, fought against them, how he made a decree and cast laws to destroy them, and how he went to the king, telling him to hang Mordecai. But the wicked plot had been devised against the Jews came back upon himself, and he and his sons were hanged. Therefore these days were called Purim, because of the lots. For in their language, this is the word that means lots. And so because of what was written in this letter, and because of what they had experienced in this affair, and what had befallen them, Mordecai established this festival. And the Jews took upon themselves, upon their descendants, and upon all those who would join them, to observe it without fail. These days of Purim should be a memorial and kept from generation to generation, in every city and family and country. These days of Purim were to be observed for all time, and the commemoration of them was never to cease among their descendants. Then Queen Esther, daughter of Amniba, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote down what they had done, and gave full authority to the letter about Purim. And Mordecai and Queen Esther established this decision on their own responsibility, pledging their own well-being to the plan. Esther established it by a decree forever, and it was written for a memorial. The king levied a tax upon his kingdom, both by land and sea, and for his power and bravery and the wealth and glory of his kingdom, they were recorded in the annals of the kings of the Persians and the Medes. Mordecai acted with authority on behalf of King Artaxerxes, and was great in the kingdom, as well as honored by the Jews. His way of life was such as to make him beloved by his whole nation. And Mordecai said, "These things have come from God, for I remember the dream that I had concerning these matters, and none of them has failed to be fulfilled. And there was a little spring that became a river, and there was light and sun and abundant water. The river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen. The two dragons are Haman and myself. The nations are those that gathered to destroy the name of the Jews. And my nation, this is Israel, who cried out to God and who was saved. The Lord has saved his people. The Lord has rescued us from all these evils. God has done great signs and wonders, wonders that have never happened among the nations. For this purpose, he made 2 lots, one for the people of God and one for all the nations. And those 2 lots came to the hour and moment and day of decision before God and among all the nations. And God remembered his people and vindicated his inheritance. So they will observe these days in the month of Adar, on the 14th and 15th of that month, with an assembly and joy and gladness before God, from generation to generation, forever among his people Israel. In the 4th year of the reign of postscript, interesting. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra Dositheus, who said he was a priest and a Levite, and his son Ptolemy brought to Egypt the foregoing letter about Purim, which they said was authentic and had been translated by Lysimachus, son of Ptolemy, one of the residents of Jerusalem. There was no, main verb in that last sentence. And it's actually bugging me. I don't know, it's an excellent story. I think it has... Obviously, the beginning of it is kind of petty, I would say. Humans are bad. Humans are weird. We're weird people. But I think, the overall, thing about, trusting in God and, not being afraid. I guess that's the theme, right? Is that despite the fact that Esther was afraid, despite the fact that Mordecai was afraid, they still, stood up against Haman, and the king listened to them. Right? And, this, I don't know, maybe as a kid, that kind of, blind trust that, oh yeah, those in charge will actually listen to me because I am right. That sort of blind trust into the system is, appealed to me as a kid. I was a weird kid. I trust people way too much, I think. You can ask Danielle. I don't get mad, right? I don't get angry. And, I don't know, to me, the king never got angry, right? And Esther was constantly asking for forgiveness for something she hadn't even done. And, and the king was totally merciful about it, right? And, it paints Xerxes in such a grand and such a great, image, right? I don't know if he was acting like that. I know that he went to war against lots of people in Persia. I mean, as a Persian. As a Persian king. But, in this story, he's, representative of a, kind-hearted fellow who would, listen to his wife. And then Haman is obviously this, racist person who, is not respecting the fact that Mordecai does not want to bow to him. And in a historical context, there's a lot to be said about that, but specifically with a modern interpretation, I guess if you compare it to modern times, that would not fly, right? You're not respecting someone's religion. So I guess for me, I don't know, maybe it was just the December 14th thing, but I guess my question is why did I like this story so much? Out of all the stories in the Bible, maybe because it was a happy ending. Not all the stories in the Bible are happy endings. A lot of them are ambiguous. Some of them lead into more things, Samuel 1, Samuel 2. Samuel 1 leads into Samuel 2, which leads into Kings, right? And Kings is up and down, right? So in the end, is Samuel 1 a happy ending? Because that was all about Saul and David, and then Samuel 2 was all about David and his sons, right? And they kind of screw up quite a lot. Quite a lot. They do a lot. Watch the Passion Play. It's on YouTube. All the kings, most of the kings of Israel kind of flip flop throughout the Bible. But I guess for this one, it's it's a happy ending. No doubt about it. The Jews are saved. Yes, they killed, 15,000 people, defending themselves, which I guess is righteous death. I don't condone death. Death is bad. Don't kill people. Don't kill people. If it's in self-defense, then that's fine, because self-defense. But I think in this case, it is self-defense. It is a very, defensive thing. And I guess what's also interesting is, there's a lot of, the Ptolemy thing later and the Xerxes. There's, historical background to it. I'm sure if I did research, I could find, other documents that what's it called, corroborate the story, or at least corroborate parts of the story. I don't know. And then like Mordecai and Esther, they're just like kind, not kind, but they're like they're fearful, but they're brave. They believe in doing the good. They don't let go of their belief just because they're in higher position of powers or because someone of a higher position is telling them, right? Esther still worships God even though she is queen, even though she is the wife of the king. And I don't know, that's sort of like steadfast, like even in the face of peer pressure of that sort, right? It's like you're in the court of the king of Persia. If you don't know the historical background, most of our Western ideas and like how the West is kind of developed comes from like Rome and the Roman Empire. But before Rome, the greatest empire was like Persia and something about Greece, something about like Philip and Alexander the Great. But like Persia literally united like the entire world at a point, right? And then Rome took over. And so you gotta understand that like being in the inner circle of the Persian king is kind of a big deal. Especially when like Persia itself, like religiously, didn't have like a straightforward religion. They like kind of just melded everything. Because they didn't want any rebellions. Right? And they didn't want any rebellions, so they didn't have anyone, they didn't like persecute anyone for like believing in a certain thing, right? But that also meant that they didn't like people not conforming to those things. So, for example, one of them is the fact that anyone in a position of power, like Haman or Xerxes, like you have to bow to them, right? And like, no, I think there's a line in the Bible somewhere. It's like, you shall have no gods before anyone, right? You don't bow to anyone except God, right? That is one staple. And it happens a lot. Like in Daniel, it happens too. And like Daniel's friend, they try to burn them because they don't bow to the statue of the Persian monarch. And they just like Esther and Mordecai, they show such a steadfast respect and love that even in the face of death, they'll continue to do their thing. They'll continue to pray. They'll continue to worship. They'll continue to fast. They'll continue to, fear the Lord rather than the king of Persia. And I don't know, in the face of, I'm in a public school, so in the face of like everything always at me, like secularism, scienceology, I don't think it's a term, but like secularism is a big one. Secularism, right? Like I would argue that public schools have less secularism than like Catholic schools, but I've never been to a Catholic school. But that's just the way I see it. Because I've been fine, right? I can practice my faith without fear. Maybe that's just because Canada. But I can practice my faith without fear of rejection from my friends, without fear of ridicule. I've prayed the rosary in front of my friends before, and I mean, I think I have. And like, no one says anything, right? But like, there are moments where for sure, like, I will, like, praying before tests is one. I will try to pray before a test, but I don't like doing it in front of people because I fear being judged. And I guess in this context, right, that's bad. Pray in front of your friends, right? God is amazing, and God doesn't matter if your friends laugh at you because you pray to God or whatever, right? Just God is more important than that. What more can I say? Let's do some quick Google searching. Let's see. Purim. Feast of Purim. Let's do some Google searching. Because I guess March 16th and March 17th. Interesting. It is celebrated still. Purim is a Jewish holiday that commemorates the saving of the Jewish people from Haman, an Archaemenid Persian Empire official who was planning to kill all the Jews. As recounted in the book of Esther, Haman was the royal advisor to King Ahasuerus, and he planned to kill all the Jews in the empire. Okay, let's look at the Wikipedia page. Let's see. Observances. Oh, there's a lot. Oh, okay, so something about food and gifts, so they give food and gifts, and charity, so they give to the poor. customs, greetings, masquerading. Oh, you wear. Oh, okay. Originated the Italian Jews. Oh, interesting. So there's like different things that came out of it after a while. Okay. Burning of Haman's effigy. That's like statue or image. That's fun. The spectacle aroused the wrath of the early Christians, who interpreted the mocking and execution of Haman effigy as a disguised attempt to reenact the death of Jesus and ridicule the Christian faith. You heard it here, folks. Christians and Catholics are not perfect. We do dumb things. Like this. What the frick? Huh? What? This was in like early Roman, or no, the like Christian Roman time. You really like are like, oh, you're burning a thing. Like Jesus didn't even die by like fire. What? Torah learning. Cool. Alright, so there's a bunch of things. Apparently. I could go through it, but my voice is dying. And you can research it yourself. I recommend you do. Here's the Adar thing. Purim is celebrated annually on the 14th day of the Hebrew month Adar. It is celebrated on Adar 2 in the Hebrew leap years, which occur every 2 to 3 years. The day following the victory of the Jews over the enemies. But what is Adar? Is Adar? It says the 12th month, but Adar is the 6th month of the civil year and the 12th month of the ecclesiastical year of the Hebrew calendar, roughly corresponding to the month of March in the Gregorian calendar. Oh. So, 7-year-old Quio is very sad right now because it turns out 12th month of the Jewish people at the time of this book was not December, which is obvious considering December is Latin. But yeah, very disheartening, not gonna lie. But I will continue to enjoy this story as if it celebrated my birthday. Yeah. And that, now my friends, folks, viewers, watchers, observers, that was the Book of Esther, read to you. Mami, fully next week, we'll be back, the two of us. But for now, it's Quio. Just Quio. And this has been The Lost Sheep. But, bye.